I'm a bit teary-eyed because I had a bit of an emotional conversation. But okay, so this is a bit late. Sorry, I thought I could have it in the morning, but I got distracted. Total just distraction. But it was a good one. Like I had a conversation with my friend that was kind of overdue. So there's that. Ooh. And then I had a conversation that got me a little emotional. So I don't know if you could tell, but I got a little teary-eyed. But we're here. We're going to talk about the Tower card today. And I just want to give a little bit of maybe insight so we can kind of better understand and make the most of this kind of difficult energy, so that when this card comes up in a future reading, or even if you're moving through this energy now, you're in a good place to make the most of it. So last week we had the Tower, and I posted about it, and do you think we should talk about it? And people were like, yes, unanimously. I definitely see this playing out in the world at kind of the macro level, right? Like the bigger picture, as well as oftentimes there's often like a macro and a micro, right? If we see it at major levels, there's usually something of that going on within our personal lives. I would chalk it up to a lot of things, just energy, astrology, whatever, but generally that's kind of the case. With the Tower, we see a building that's been struck by lightning and shit's going down, right? The shit has hit the fan. You do not want to be in this building. Look at these people. It's not a good time. So, what happens when this card comes up? Well, it was card of the week last week. And I would say with this, usually it's either a warning, and you already know generally it's the start, right? It's the thunder clouds in the distance. It's the seed planted where you're like, I know what comes next, and it's this, and I'm not going to stay around. Or it's the event that is this. It does happen like within that week. Tarot is not, it's an art, it's not a science, right? And so you're not going to get an exact time, like, 11:59 on a Wednesday. No, it doesn't work like that. It is kind of an energetic forecast. It's not down to the minute. It's kind of like, this is what's swirling around. So with the Tower, I always link it to the Death card. To me, these are, I won't say cause and effect, but death comes before the Tower, and they do numerically. It's 13 and 16. It's Roman numerals, I know. It's not, I have to think about it a lot. It's not like recognition. So they go together. There's death representing change. Sometimes it does signal death. It's very uncommon. But what is death? Death is a change from our physical body to a purely non-physical body. So it makes sense in that situation. But when I see the Death card, I almost always tell people, shit's not working anymore, right? The shit is not working anymore. And you know that. And you are getting the knock, right? The knock at the door that's like, we need to change because the situation is no longer working for you. To think about it, it's like, things change in life. They have to change or we would never grow, right? Not everything in life lasts forever. Things are temporary, and that is for growth. That is scarcity, right? Things have value because they are scarce. If we had everything all the time, we wouldn't value it. What does that remind you of? I'll leave that for you to think about. But scarcity makes things precious. It makes it valuable. Sometimes it's artificial and sometimes it's natural. The Death card, right? The death is change. Now, we might have something come up in our life. It no longer works out. What do I normally see this with? Living situation, work, relationships. It was what we needed at the time, but it was temporary. And staying attached and gripping onto this thing for dear life, that's not what's best for us because it's done its thing, it's run its course, it has met its expiration date. And so the Death card shows up to say, hey, we're at the expiration date. it's time to start moseying on, right? A lot of people don't do that for a lot of reasons, especially because, I mean, if you look at it, right, I said work, relationship, living situation. Oftentimes these are all intertwined, right? If you need to change your living situation, maybe moving out of state would be best, but you can't because you're family, right? There's a lot of things that get, if you want to leave your work, you might have your family that you're the breadwinner for, and you feel like you can't leave, right? So these things are really intertwined, which is also a huge upheaval. It is no small task oftentimes when the death card comes up, right? Because if it's like, oh, you need to make a change and it's like work out, maybe it is, but that's like a behavioral thing, right? It's something that you just have to work out how you're going to do it. Oftentimes the death card is something that's very difficult. It is a big upheaval, a difficult change. And so when we don't make that change, that is kind of like nagging at us, that the universe is like, yo, get out of this situation, what happens? The Tower card happens, right? It is what happens when a unsustainable situation is kept going, right? It is like you just keep injecting it, right, with life, and there's no more life in it, right? It's gone. It has left us, right? And so we have hitched we've like hitched our wagon onto the wrong horse, and it will never be the right horse. And so it will come down. We cannot make this the right horse. We have gone down the wrong path. And at some point we will have to get back on the right path. And the Tower card is the end of the road. There's no fixing this. You have to make the correction. We are now forcing you. And so that may be what we're feeling. And when you look at the last 3 years, I think there's a lot that makes sense with this card. And that is a big reason why I was like, we need to talk about this, because so many of the things that we have relied on or depended on, we might get like a bump in the road here or there, but overall it was all right. We knew there were problems oftentimes, but we're like, maybe not worth the upheaval, but they were. And there's a lot of reasons that I won't go into right now. There's a lot of reasons that I won't go into as to why, sorry. Sometimes when you get the good light, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna have some party crashers. I get it. It's good light, good lighting. There were a lot of reasons, there were a lot of reasons why it would have been worth the upheaval, but and I would say one of them is just kind of human nature, that we are so overloaded with information that we can't interact with all of it, because then we'd never get anything done. So there's a lot of reasons for that. We don't have to that's too much for this. I'm trying to keep it light and short. But we all get freaked out by the upheaval because this looks horrible, right? But the thing to remember is that once this building comes down, there's going to be a lot of resources that are freed up, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, if we look at it, for example, like your work, maybe you're in a toxic work environment. And so at the start, you were like, this is going to be great. I'm going to make money. And over time, it went to shit, right? And so what happens? You're exhausted, right? Because you're drained. You are struggling to try to keep yourself afloat, maybe. It's harming your family or your relationships because you are so consumed by trying to get this work situation going. You're trying to stay in this position. Now, if you got the death card and you were like, yes, I know that's my job, it's horrible. And maybe you started squirreling away some money and you stopped buying new clothes, you really made things do, you started making things from scratch, like you did not have much money, but you started picking up extra jobs, you really hustled to get some extra money. And maybe you've been wanting to get into another industry, or there's something you do on the side, and you started to kind of emotionally divest from that position so you could start to put your energy into what it is you're really passionate about and where you really feel called to, right? And I'm not saying like in your mind, you were scrolling and you had this idea. I'm saying what your heart is really calling for, and what you kind of know in your gut is something you want to pursue. By taking this warning and being very serious and strategic, you will probably avoid this, right? Because rather than letting this fester and become untenable to where it all comes down, you've made a plan to escape. With this card, you have held on and you have exerted a lot of emotional energy, right? So in this job, you've maybe put in long hours, you've done all these things. Now what happens when you're fired or they downsize, right? It's very emotional because you have put so much of yourself, you've worked very hard to try to keep this thing going that you hate. And there's kind of an emotional like that part's really difficult because you're like, it's a lot of questions, right? Like, why would I do that to myself? So it's hard. It's very hard, but it's now harder because you have the emotional, rejection, and you weren't ready. So you really have to scramble, right? The Tower is a difficult card. There's no two ways about it. I'm not going to mince words, and I'm not going to pretend like everything is hunky-dory when it's not. I'm going to tell you it's rough. But that's why I made the recommendation to don't get emotional, because what does that help? It doesn't, right? You can get all up in your mind about all the things that shoulda, coulda, woulda, does not pay bills, and it does not get you out of the shit when you're deep in it, right? If you look at the fact that the Tower came down and it shouldn't have, and that's all you can focus on, that doesn't get you out, right? When we get the Tower card, we need to look for opportunities. We need to say, okay, if say we're laid off, okay, I have a little bit of money coming in. How long do I have to make this work? What can I do? Am I saving money now that I'm not, going into work? I don't need clothes. I don't need to pack a lunch, right? Find all the opportunities. Start cooking from scratch because you have more time, right? You now have other resources you didn't have. Maybe the time you were laid off gives you time and opportunity. Sorry, my cat I'm just trying to keep things afloat right now. She's like on my tripod. Or rubbing against it. Sorry, excuse me. You're trying to just keep things afloat, right? But you can look for opportunities. Maybe this frees up time, a resource, so that you can start your side business. Maybe this frees up time, a resource, to start a class, to get to the thing you wanted to do. Would it have been easier if you did it ahead of time? Yeah, it probably would have been a lot less stressful too, but that's not the case anymore. So don't live there. Why? You know what I'm saying? Shoulda, coulda, woulda doesn't do anything for you, right? We are in difficult times for a lot of us. Some people are really, really struggling out there. And if they are not really, really struggling, a lot of people are feeling the pinch. And so at some point, we also kind of have to acknowledge how we all got here. I don't think the way we think about the way a lot of information is presented and the way people think about things is very helpful. But I can tell you, I've been through some shit in the month of October, and I didn't get through it by feeling bad for myself or giving up or exploring a mentality that is not laser focused on getting through it and using the resources that have been freed up and the opportunity that came after a lot of things going wrong. So that is, I'm hoping, a reframe that will help you in difficult times. We are in difficult times. I'm just not gonna sugarcoat it. We are seeing a lot of paradigms crack because they are not sustainable. Did you see my academia as a scam like story thing? I'm not really sure. I feel like it probably should live somewhere. I just don't. It just doesn't. Needs a living situation. But things are coming apart because they are not rooted in reality or truth or what's best for people. We've been fed a lot of things that are just not best for us, real. There's a lot of like wishful thinking, and it's like, okay, you know, what is it? I don't know. It like shit would be nice if, but like that's not reality, right? Reality is real, and I'm not going to help you or anyone by pretending like it's not, like pretending that we live in a fairy story, because we don't. Okay, we just don't. And that's not me saying like dog eat dog, but like you need to know, right? We're all adults. We need to be real and think of solutions, and solutions are not enabling. And I think that's what it really, the crux of it, right? We, in a Western world, there's a lot of enabling and we make excuses. But the problem is that excuses are not a parachute, okay? It's not gonna help you in this burning building, okay? It's not a flame, it's not a fire extinguisher, it's nothing. It's nothing. And we can insulate ourselves in this cotton wool, but that cotton, I mean, wool, but maybe cotton wool will probably burn, right? Don't wrap yourself in flammable material, right? Make yourself someone who will withstand the fall and get back up. Dust yourself off, right? Get back on the horse, because that's all there is. And that's how I see things. I don't know. Maybe you don't. But I did want to also, I'm not just going to leave you, right? I'm not just going to say, hey, make yourself a parachute. Peace out. Bye. That's not what we do here. So something that is very helpful for me, because I actually can't read tarot for myself. It's a very common thing. Some readers can. A lot of people cannot read tarot for themselves. So what do I do when I need help or an answer? I use bibliomancy. What is bibliomancy? Bibliomancy is using a book for the purposes of divination. You're going to ask, maybe even write out a strong, clear question, and then you select a book and you open that book and you find a page and a spot within that page that feels right to you, and you read that sentence. Now, I will just tell you, because I don't have very much luck with like pulling any book off a shelf. I just don't. It doesn't help me. I don't feel like it's clear enough. I don't feel like I get enough from it. I use a book that might be controversial, and that's okay. That's all right. If you don't like it, find an appropriate swap. But I use the King James Bible. It is ancestrally relevant for me. I like to use it because I know what I'm getting. It was used to transmit a lot of knowledge and wisdom. So there are really powerful stories, archetypes, wisdom hidden within this. And if I don't understand the line, which is common, I often don't, I can go online and I can find the line. I can get a summary of the passage. I can get it very fast. I can get the message very quickly and clearly. I also love that I can use the line in a spell. I can memorize it and repeat it if I'm going through something very difficult to help kind of ground, right? A bit of a little mini meditation, a little mantra, if you will. And I love the idea that my ancestors would have most likely read and prayed over the King James Version. So I can tap into the exact words of my ancestors. What? Amazing. And I love it. And you will never, you will never change my mind. Is there problems with this book? Yeah, duh. But I know, and you know what the issues are. Has it been messed with? Yeah, sure. But I know what I'm getting and I'm comfortable with that. If you're not, appropriate swap. That's it. This is a cafeteria. Take what you want, leave what you don't. No one's paying me anything, so I can just do what I want. Cool, love that. Freedom, get it. So I hope that's helpful. Maybe let me know if you have any questions. Nobody had any questions when I put up my little question box on Instagram, so I just kind of tried to be like succinct. I am not a succinct person. Sorry, I have the hardest time. When I was doing readings, I had the hardest time. I cannot be succinct. So if you have questions, let me know. I hope that was helpful. I know it's just a difficult time. I don't think pretending like it's not, or like everything is going to be fine, is very helpful. It's just not. I'm a practical person. I'm a pragmatic person. Like, that was a big reason why I had a hard time with magic. And that is a big reason why I started Key and Clover, because I'm trying to be practical. I'm in the real world, okay? Like, I'm trying to make the most of the mundane, trying to get the most magic in my life to do the things I want to do. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions, and I guess I will see you in the next one. Bye.